American college students who have spent the past 5 or 6 months, really the past 5 or 6 decades, protesting on behalf of leftist causes have just received a major endorsement. I'm not talking about Noam Chomsky or Jesse Jackson. I'm not even talking about Ibram Kendi or Robin DiAngelo. Those guys are small potatoes. I am talking about the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Ayatollah, who has ruled Iran with an iron fist since 1989, after coming to power alongside his predecessor during the Islamic Revolution, has written something of a love letter to America's campus leftists. Dear university students in the United States of America, the Ayatollah writes, you are standing on the right side of history. You have now formed a branch of the resistance front and have begun an honorable struggle. A jihad, if you will, in the face of your government's ruthless pressure, which openly supports Zionists. No sooner had the Ayatollah offered his words of encouragement than a new flag dropped. You can see there, if you're just listening, I'll describe it to you. There's the national emblem of Iran and the takbir sitting atop the Pride Progress rainbow flag. It's a little bit of syncretism. It is being reported that the Ayatollah's preferred pronouns are Khamenei, they, and them. Khamein, them, in the plural accusative. It's a great troll. It's really funny. Very clever stuff from the Ayatollah. But it's mostly funny because if these university students behaved in Iran as they regularly behave in America, most of them would be arrested for multiple crimes and executed. That is not in any way an exaggeration. That would give a whole new meaning to college kids getting stoned. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Remember when the libs told us that they weren't sending out drug pipes to crackheads and fentanyl users, and they insisted that was a fake news story from the fake news conservatives? And well, now they're admitting that they're doing that. They've been doing that for quite a while. We'll get to that in a moment. First, though, we got to talk about Birch Gold. Text Knowles, KNWLES, to 989898. We recently had some monumental news that no one's talking about. For the first time in our history, the interest we pay on the national debt has surpassed every individual budget item except for Social Security. The United States now spends more on interest than on national defense or Medicare, and the situation is only getting worse as the government continues to spend like drunken sailors. That is why investors, central banks, and concerned savers are turning to gold, something not tied to the inflated U.S. dollar. Birch Gold understands that navigating financial decisions can be scary. That is why their dedicated in-house IRA department is there to guide you every step of the way. Birch Gold is committed to addressing your questions and concerns promptly. Whether it's about fees, taxes on rollovers, or the timing of the process, they are here to ensure you feel valued and well-informed. Text Knowles, KNWLES, to 989898 to talk to one of Birch Gold's experts and claim your free info kit on gold. You will learn how to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Best part is, it does not cost you one penny out of pocket. Just text Knowles, KNWLES, to 989898. That is Knowles to 989898. I love the Ayatollah story so much. It's just, we would like to remind you all that rights are human rights, and death to America, inshallah, Allahu Akbar. Also, we would please request that you use our preferred pronouns and do not assume that gender is a biological reality. Okay, all right, that's enough. Speaking of tyrants punishing people, a New York judge, Merchan, has, as of yesterday evening, dismissed the jury. So they hadn't come to a verdict right away after the final day of closing arguments. Merchan was trying to get the jury to come to a verdict, and he seemed to kind of stretch the rules a little bit. Usually, I'm no legal scholar, but usually it seems to me when juries have to come to a conclusion about whether a defendant is guilty or not, usually they have to, at the very least, agree on what crime he committed. But Judge Merchan, this liberal hack in New York, said, actually, that's not necessary in this case. Judge Merchan, according to reports, again, we don't have a camera in the courtroom, but according to reports, he told the jurors they do not have to unanimously agree on what crime Trump actually committed. So they could say, okay, 4 jurors think he committed this crime in this way. And another 4 jurors think, actually, no, he didn't commit that crime in that way, but he committed this other kind of crime in this other way. And then another 4 jurors could say he jaywalked or something. I don't know. But because all 12 agree that the man did something, they can convict the former president, current Republican nominee for president, and put him in an orange jumpsuit and imprison him before the election. That, according to Judge Merchan. Now, I had to assume I was misinterpreting what was going on here. Because I didn't go to law school. I've never been a prosecutor. So I thought, no, obviously I'm missing something. This is so stupid and insane and corrupt. There's no way this is real. But then I turned to someone who actually does know a thing about prosecutions, including in the Southern District of New York. That would be Andy McCarthy, who was former chief assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. Here was Mr. McCarthy's take on the judge's instructions.
It's really outrageous because in a normal criminal case, every statutory crime has what we call elements of the offense. Like in a bank robbery case, it's, you have to rob. It's got to be a financial institution. You have to show intent. Those are the things the jury has to agree on unanimously that they were proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Here, what we're doing is taking the element that actually makes this a felony, because remember, falsification of records is normally a misdemeanor in New York. What makes it a felony is that you're concealing or committing another crime. And here the judge is telling them they don't have to agree about what the other crime is under circumstances where that not only is what makes this a felony, what makes it a 4-year potential prison penalty rather than a year or less, but it's also what gets us into the courtroom, because if this had been a misdemeanor, the time to bring this case would have lapsed in 2019. So the only reason they're still able to bring this case is because it's a felony, allegedly, and yet now the judge is saying, you don't have to agree on what the felony is.
So Andy McCarthy's saying, no, not only is it as bad as you think it is, it's actually worse. Because the judge is playing a little bit of a shell game here. The judge is saying, it almost reminds me of that Obamacare decision. Remember, the Obamacare decision hinged on whether or not the Obamacare penalty was a penalty or a tax. If you didn't purchase health insurance from a private company, then you could be penalized under Obamacare. But if it was a tax, the court wasn't able to hear the case. If it was a penalty, it undermined the case. So they were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And it seems the same thing here. Saying, no, you don't need to agree that it's a felony. I mean, if it's not a felony, we don't even have the right to hear this case. But you don't have to agree. Just agree that Trump is a bad guy. If you all can agree that Trump is in any way a bad guy, then we can put him in prison. Now, another former federal prosecutor, this would be Niyama Ramani, says, quote, an outright acquittal is unlikely, meaning Trump is likely to be convicted. But a hung jury is very possible, at least, given the political nature of the case, and even convictions on misdemeanors would be a victory for the former president, for the exact reasons that Andy McCarthy just laid out. If he's convicted on a misdemeanor, he's going to appeal it, and they're going to say, well, they had no right to even bring this case, so forget about it. And they'll probably say forget about it because this is a case being tried in New York. The big takeaway is that the fix is in. They keep changing the rules. They keep moving the goalposts. They tell the jurors they don't even need to agree on what the freaking crime is. You just have to get Trump. And we're going to bring a star in to testify, even though she really has no information that's relevant to the case. And we're going to bring some crook rat lawyer in, Trump's old fixer, who has admitted to committing crimes that are worse than the crimes that Trump is being accused of. And Michael Cohen, the rat, hasn't even been prosecuted for those crimes. Doesn't matter. We're going to make a big show, big circus here. We're going to invite the Biden campaign to hold a big press conference outside. They're going to bring Robert De Niro for some reason, probably because they couldn't get anybody better. It's going to be a circus because this really has nothing to do with the law or justice. This is a political prosecution to get Trump. So what are the odds that he gets acquitted? Seems relatively low. The verdict is coming out any minute now. We're speaking in the morning, so that by the time you're listening to this, the information might be out of date. But I think this is still actually relevant and worth talking about. Who is on this jury? The New York Times did a little bit of a expose on the jurors, not with names or anything. You don't want to dox these guys. But juror number 1 works in sales, lives in West Harlem. Says he gets his news from the New York Times and watches Fox News and MSNBC. There's no way that guy is going to vote to acquit Donald Trump. Because even though they slipped the Fox News in there to seem balanced, if you read the New York Times, if you turn on MSNBC, you're a huge lib, you're going to convict Trump. So that guy's voting to convict. Also, because this trial is not really about a crime, it's just about whether or not you like Trump or not. And also, the reason we don't prosecute presidents generally is because everyone has a strong political opinion of that person. So that's always going to cloud their judgment, even if there were a real crime being alleged. Juror number 2 works in finance, lives in Hell's Kitchen. He likes hiking and music. He follows Michael Cohen on social media. Also, Kellyanne Conway, Trump's former campaign manager, says Trump's done some good for the country. It goes both ways. Okay, maybe that guy is the secret conservative. I don't know. Maybe he could vote to acquit. Juror number 3 lives and works in Chelsea, reads the New York Times, finds articles on Google. Okay, that person definitely voting to convict. Juror number 4, engineer from the West Village, obviously going to vote to convict. You could have stopped at West Village, which we will. Juror number 5 works in education and is from Harlem. So immediately you would think this person's going to vote to convict. However, she says she appreciates Mr. Trump's candor. President Trump speaks his mind. I would rather that in a person than someone who's in office and you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. So this might be the kind of person, sure, education, liberal field, West Harlem, or regular Harlem, pretty liberal place. But this might be the kind of, South Bronx resident who goes to the Trump rally. Maybe there's a chance that person votes to acquit. Another person works in technology, lives in Chelsea, reads the New York Times, guaranteed convict. Juror number 7 works in legal field, lives on the Upper East Side, says he had political views as to the Trump presidency, and he agreed with some policies, disagreed with others. Okay, maybe he'd acquit. If you don't just outright say you hate Trump, maybe you'd vote to acquit. Juror 8, Upper East Side, works in finance, reads the Journal, Wall Street Journal, enjoys skiing and yoga, guaranteed convict. Yoga? Are you kidding? No person who's ever done yoga is going to vote for Donald Trump. Juror number 9 works in education, is from the Upper East Side, says Trump, he was our president. Everyone knows who he is. Everyone is talking about politics. Guaranteed convict. Saying, yeah, we all have thoughts on Trump. Guaranteed to convict. Juror 10 lives in Murray Hill, on the east side of New York. Says he doesn't follow news, but if anything, it's the New York Times. Guaranteed convict. Juror 11, product manager, lives in Upper Manhattan. Says I don't like Trump's persona, how he presents himself in public. Guaranteed convict. Juror 12 works in healthcare, Upper East Side. Says she likes live music and hiking, listens to religious podcasts. So you'd say healthcare, Upper East Side, probably convict, but listens to religious podcasts. Okay. If you're religious, good chance you're going to vote for Trump. You're going to like Trump. So, okay, maybe you quit. So what does that leave us with? 3 or 4 who might acquit, the rest convict. But that's all you need. If you get 3 or 4 who say, I'm not participating in this, I'm not sending the former president to jail, the current Republican nominee, I don't want to do that. Why am I talking about this case from the perspective of, do you like Trump? Do you not like Trump? Why am I not talking about the merits of the case? We've talked about the merits of the case earlier. There are really no merits to the case. But even if there were, that's not what this case is about. That's not what prosecuting a former president and a current nominee is about. The case is about a referendum on Trump's politics and whether our political order can tolerate a right-winger and a conservative in the presidency. The only question on this trial is whether or not a secret conservative snuck onto the jury. That's the only question. It doesn't matter what Stormy Daniels said or Michael Cohen said or any of that. Or Judge Merchan, who's just salivating at the prospect of sending Trump into an orange jumpsuit. The only question that matters is, did a secret conservative sneak on this jury? And will that person have the courage, it will require immense courage, to stand up and stop this travesty from taking place that would permanently upend our justice system and our political order. You know, my series, Michael And, is not your typical conversation. The episodes are unscripted, long-form, deep discussions into the controversial, the shocking, even the supernatural. Some episodes are debates with people who have risen to the top of the public consciousness on different issues. One example would be Pearl Davis, who's made a name for herself in the discussion of the Red Pill movement, the men's rights movement, and on the topic of marriage. Here's a little trailer for our debate.
But I'll see guys that take you guys' advice. And sometimes, it ruins their life.
What would men do if they begged you for advice?
Again, I'm not in the business of telling men what to do,
But I think you kind of are.
Well, what % of women do you think are marriageable?
I think you're skirting the issue.
People are not going to return to marriage until you make the institution more fair.
Well, what they'll do is they'll return.
It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what I say. You guys have been preaching marriage for a decade.
Yep.
And the rates of marriage have still been going down. Why? Because the cost is too high and the quality of women is too low. How do you fix it?
Do you want to get married?
The full episode is available now on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel and the X channel, as well as DailyWire Plus. So go check out that long-form interview. Speaking of juries, Joe Biden just took a little trip. This was kind of interesting. Joe Biden just took a little trip at about 8 p.m., so it's pretty late into the evening, to meet with his son, Beau Biden's widow. Now, this woman, Hallie Biden, is not merely Beau Biden's widow. She's also Hunter Biden's former mistress. Hunter Biden obviously was married to another woman, but then decided to abandon his family and shack up with his former sister-in-law. And Joe Biden just went there pretty late at night to meet with Hallie Biden, just days before the Hunter Biden gun trial is to take place. Peter Doocy, one of the few conservatives in that White House briefing room, just asked whether this might have something to do with witness tampering.
Why did President Biden have a private meeting with a witness who plans to testify in court against his son?
Can you say more?
Hallie Biden is a key government witness who allegedly disposed of a gun that Hunter is accused of buying illegally. President Biden was at her house this week.
I think the American people should also be told the full breadth of this, not just a part of this question here. As you all know, the president actually spoke to this yesterday during his memorial, I think impactful, powerful Memorial Day address, where he talked about the passing, the anniversary, the 9th anniversary of the passing of his son. And he visited her as that anniversary is approaching. He visited her days before the anniversary of the passing of his son. And she is family. She was married, obviously, to his late son. And I think that is something also to mention as you're asking your question to me.
So they did not talk about her testimony?
This was not about that. This was about literally the 9th anniversary of the passing of his son. That is upcoming in days. Peter.
How dare you, Peter, raise the question of whether or not Joe Biden was witness tampering days before his son's gun trial, when the woman that he went to see allegedly helped Hunter Biden commit that crime. How dare you, because Joe Biden's other son died. How dare you? Yeah, it's very sad that Joe Biden's other son died. That is a very sad thing. And it's very sad that that woman lost her husband. And it's very sad that Hunter Biden abandoned his family and began an affair with his brother's widow. But all that sad stuff is not really what's at issue here. What's at issue is whether or not Joe Biden is witness tampering before finally we're getting a trial of Hunter Biden, who has committed all sorts of crimes very, very publicly. We've known about for years. And this corrupt DOJ, the corrupt Biden administration, has slow-walked the prosecution, tried to give Hunter Biden a sweetheart plea deal so he wouldn't have to face any consequences whatsoever for his crimes and for peddling American influence, for using his father's name to enrich the Biden family, to sell American state influence overseas. What's of interest here is whether or not Joe Biden himself, the president of the United States, is doing the exact sort of thing that the liberals are accusing Trump of doing. Witness tampering. And Karine Jean-Pierre has nothing, so she just stands on Beau Biden's grave, is what she does. She said, how dare you? How dare you raise any question about this? Beau Biden died. It's very sad that Beau Biden died. Did they talk about the trial? It wasn't about the trial. I didn't ask if the visit was about the trial. What Peter Doocy asked is, did they talk about the trial? Did they talk about Hunter Biden's crimes? Did they talk about how Hallie Biden might have helped Hunter Biden commit those crimes, which she's going to be asked to testify about in court? Did they at all talk about that? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you, people? You freaking Democrats. Pardon my French. It's not quite French. I'm using words that are only slightly vulgar today. It's like I don't know what Mediterranean country that would be, Portuguese or Spanish or something. But I'm astounded by it, by how brazen this is. I shouldn't be any longer because this is what the liberals always do. But everything they accuse Trump of doing, they have done themselves. They accuse Trump of colluding with the Russians. They colluded with the Russians to put together the Steele dossier to frame Trump. They accuse Trump of turning the government against his political enemies. They turned the government against their political enemies for many years now, going back to the IRS scandal under Barack Obama, and then the spying scandal on the Trump campaign under Barack Obama, and then the total undermining of President Trump's administration through the liberal bureaucratic state. Now, that same corrupt DOJ refusing to prosecute the Biden family. We're trying to slow walk it. We're trying to undermine that prosecution. Witness tampering. Everything they accuse the Republicans of doing, they have done themselves 10 times over. Now, that means that our country is not very healthy. But when you want to be healthy, you ought to check out Lumen. Go to lumen.me, promo code Knowles. Making the decision to prioritize health can be difficult, especially if you're not sure where to start. However, it is not just about making a decision, it's about making a commitment to a better quality of life. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It is a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you will know what's going on with your metabolism. Whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs, it takes your unique metabolic data and crafts a personalized nutrition plan for that day, tailored to your body's needs and goals. Breathe into it before and after workouts and meals and gain real-time insights into your body's metabolic response. Lumen will provide you with actionable tips to help you stay on top of your health game. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me, then use Knowles, code Knowles, to get $100 off your Lumen. That is LUMEN.ME. Use code Knowles at checkout for $100 off. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Speaking of crackheads, do you remember some years ago, this was about 2 or 3 years ago now, there was a news story that the Biden administration was supplying pipes to drug addicts. And conservatives pointed out that this was a bad idea, that is part of the public health initiatives of the Biden administration. They were giving drug paraphernalia to drug addicts. We said maybe that's not a good idea. And what did we hear? We were told that this was total fake news. Here's an article from 2022, Washington Post. No, the federal government is not spending $30 million on crack pipes. How many Pinocchios did they give it? Let's see, was this one of their Pinocchio? No, this was an even fuller, just a full article. No, this is fake news, faux rage, their words, not mine, from conservatives. Another article, CNN, fact check. Biden admin is not funding crack pipes. I mean, just dozens and dozens of these articles. But now let's go back to the Washington Post one day ago. Fentanyl users get free smoking gear in some cities. Now there's pushback. No, the federal government isn't spending $30 million on crack pipes. Yeah, fentanyl users are getting a bunch of pipes, and some people don't like that. Now, I know what you're going to say. I know, because you're very clever. You're thinking, well, Michael, the way that they get around this is they're saying, look, in some cities, some city initiatives are providing these pipes to drug addicts, but that's not necessarily the federal government, except it is. It actually is. So we have just one example. This is from the CNN example. They talk about one LA program giving out these pipes to drug addicts. And they say that the drug addicts are getting the pipes from LA Community Health. But that's just a local group. It's not necessarily the federal government, right? Except that LA Community Health gets money from the California Healthcare Foundation. So then I just Googled. I said, let's see how many degrees from Kevin Bacon we have to get here. Let's just follow the money. How quickly do we get back to the federal government? Okay, LA Community Health gets money from the California Healthcare Foundation. Google California Healthcare Foundation. California Healthcare Foundation gets money from the federal government. Like many entities that focus on the underserved, the 600 plus federally qualified healthcare centers, FQHCs, FQHC lookalikes, and nonprofit centers in the state can be particularly hard hit during an economic downturn. And the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, that recently enacted federal stimulus package, recognizes community health centers' role and blah, blah, blah. They give us a bunch of money. Another conspiracy theory proven true. We've said for years now that the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is about 6 to 12 months. In this case, it took about 2 years to be totally proven right here. But we are totally proven right. The liberals are providing pipes, not just to crackheads, to fentanyl addicts too. Fentanyl, as poisonous a substance as has ever existed in America, responsible for as many deaths as any drug has ever been responsible for. They're getting the pipes for the fentanyl too. And it's not just coming from local little one-off centers. A lot of these groups are being funded by the federal government. The problem here is the libs have already moved on to another lie. This is 2 years later. So all the comedians who made fun of the conservatives for saying that the liberals were funding crack pipes and fentanyl pipes even for drug addicts, all those comedians, they made their jokes and then they moved on, and no one's going to follow up on this. And the libs are going to keep doing it. Now some people are pushing back. We were pushing back 2 years ago when you lied to us and said it wasn't happening. Doesn't matter. They've moved on to the next lie. And all the libs are going to make fun of us for pointing out their new lie. And then 2 years from now, when it doesn't matter anymore, that's when they can admit it. Now, speaking of drug-infested cities and liberal lies, San Francisco just got caught in a very, very awkward situation. San Francisco, in recent days, just very quietly took down a flag that had been hanging outside their Civic Center Plaza. That flag would be the Pine Tree flag, the Appeal to Heaven flag that Justice Alito got in trouble for flying at his home. I don't know really how we came to the point in America where a Supreme Court justice could be in trouble for flying a flag that was one of the earliest American Revolutionary War flags, that was put on ships commissioned by George Washington, that was designed by Washington's aide-de-camp, that quotes John Locke. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's the worst part of the Pine Tree flag, and that says an appeal to heaven. But that very same flag that the liberals told us was an insurrectionist emblem that called for the overthrow of the American Constitution, that was used by traitors and guys wearing horn hats and podium thieves. That flag was hanging in the Civic Center, not even of some right-wing municipality, of San Francisco, the most liberal city in the country. And after this controversy exploded with Alito, those San Francisco government officials looked around at each other and said, yikes. There's a new memo out. Apparently that classic American flag is evil now. Can someone just kind of take it down? Ixnay on the appeal to Evan A. So, because it's going to look really weird for us. There are other flags up there. There's a Gadsden flag, a Don't Tread on Me flag, a Texas Lone Star flag. Those are still up for now, though the libs have tried to to attack the Gadsden flag, the yellow, don't tread on me for a while too. Those are still up there. But now the Appeal to Heaven flag is down. Because rewriting history creates very awkward moments. But that's what the libs do. The libs rewrite history because they recognize. It's funny to think that the libs who burn the American flag, who desecrate the American flag, that the libs actually have understood a very important piece of political advice, which is you have to wrap yourself in the flag. If you want to be successful politically, you can't attack your country. You can't attack the body politic. You don't attack the people who constitute the country. You have to wrap yourself in that flag. You have to say, no, I'm more American than apple pie. I represent the will of the people. That's how you have political effect in a republic. And they do that. The way they do that, because they can't really wrap themselves in the historic American flag, which symbolizes the historic American nation and our traditional way of life, because they hate all of that and they want to overturn all of that. The way that they do it is by rewriting history. And they say, no, actually, our founding fathers, the government that they instituted absolutely demands that we allow perverts to read stories and dance for little toddlers at the library. It demands it. Which part of the Bill of Rights is that in? I don't know, somewhere. It's an invisible ink, but it's there. Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all 6-year-olds must be allowed to their gender. That is the true meaning of American liberty. Sure, some liberals just outright attack the founding fathers and they outright attack the America as evil and rotten. But the successful ones, the ones who actually get stuff done, in the direct political scene, I'm thinking of Barack Obama, I'm thinking of Joe Biden, I'm thinking of any of the really prominent, of Pete Buttigieg, of even Kamala Harris, of the people who are the players in politics right now. They wrap themselves in the flag. America, we need to live up to our best ideals. That means that you're going to give me a lot of money and I'm going to force you to buy a product from my friends in the healthcare industry. That's what it means. America's very highest shining ideals means that we're going to weaponize the IRS against our enemies. There's no red America. There's no blue America. There's the Barack Obama's vision of America, and that's all that really matters. That's what they say. And people buy it because that makes you feel good. So you have to rewrite history. This is why Colin Kaepernick, a left-wing activist, convinced Nike to take down the Betsy Ross flag. They said, no, that American Revolutionary flag, that's racist, that's evil, that's terrible. No, that's not our highest ideals. No, the Appeal to Heaven flag, that's not our highest ideals. So what are they going to replace it with? They're going to pretend that America was not founded on a conception of ordered liberty as it was. They're going to say America was founded on licentiousness. This is why they want to pretend that the pride flag is the natural evolution of American liberty. So we've replaced the Appeal to Heaven flag with an appeal to hell. That's how it goes. Not great for the country, but very clever politics. Now, speaking of deception, there's a survey out that says that nearly half of Zoomers live a double life online. Survey of about 2,000 Americans split evenly by generation found that 46% of Gen Z feel that their personality online vastly differs from how they present themselves in the real world. Numbers were lower for other generations. 27% of respondents across all generations report this feeling. 38% of millennials report this feeling, then it drops off even more for Gen X, 18%, then drops off even more for baby boomers, 8%. But 46% for the Zoomers. My reaction to that is that all? It's only half of Zoomers who feel they're living a double life online. I'm surprised. I think that number is way too low. I bet the real number is higher. If you look at online, you are living a double life online. Assuming that you don't present yourself as just a satyr and a pervert in public, you're living a double life. If you make nasty comments on Twitter or any other kind of thread, any other kind of social media platform that you don't make to people's faces, you are living a double life online. If you, I don't know, read certain material, watch certain videos that you would not cop to in real life, you're living a double life online. Everyone lives a double life online. The being online inclines you to leading a double life. This is why the generation that grew up online with no memory before the internet is the most likely to say they're living a double life, to admit it. And then the millennials, who I still do remember before we had the internet. I remember before we had a computer, just barely, but I remember it. They're a little bit less inclined. Gen X, which grew up for a long time without a computer, without the internet, they're significantly less inclined. The boomers, who didn't have the internet for much, if not most of their lives, only 8% say they live a double life. But that's what the internet does. And it's curious timing, this survey, because the Catholic Church is recognizing the sainthood of Carlo Acutis, who is this first millennial saint, is how he'll go down in history. And he's considered a saint of the internet because he used the internet to list all sorts of Eucharistic miracles and call people's attention to that, which is a very, very beautiful thing. The real technological moral problem of our age is how to stop the shocking technology of the internet from splitting people's personalities in two, from disintegrating the individual. Because the internet leads to compartmentalization and to multiple personalities and a kind of schizophrenic existence. And one of the great deceptions of the internet is that what you do online isn't real. Twitter isn't real would be an example of that kind of thought. But it is real. It is real because it's really happening in time and space, and it's really forming your soul and your habits, and it has moral consequence. We pretend it's all virtual and fake, but it's not. There are real people on every end of the internet. If you feel that you've got that double life, recognize you are imperiling the one life that you actually have. It is no surprise that Bentkey, the Daily Wire's new kids entertainment app, has now surpassed 500,000 downloads. With over 850 episodes ready to stream on demand, Bentkey is quickly becoming the go-to kids entertainment for families across the country. Kids love the shows and characters, while parents appreciate that the content on Bentkey requires no pre-screening. Check out the newly released Season 2 of Bentkey Originals Chipchilla and Gus Plus Us. Explore incredible shows like Wonderful Day with Mabel McClay and Super Tato. With all new episodes every Saturday morning, there is no doubt you will find new adventures your kids will love and you can trust. Here's the best part. Your family can now stream all this content on Bentkey absolutely free for 14 days. Start your free 2-week trial at bentkey.com. and experience the premium kids entertainment that Bentkey offers. My favorite comment yesterday is from Blake All1, who says, guy finds a genie's lamp. Genie says, okay, you get 3 wishes. Guy says, I want to be happier, with more money. I want world peace. Genie says, okay, Trump is president. Now, what are your other 2 wishes? Kind of a cheap little joke there, but there's some truth to it. There's a little bit of truth to that. What kind of life do we want to lead? Jerry Seinfeld has an answer that I love. Jerry Seinfeld, on the heels of his excellent commencement address at, where was that? At Duke, I think. Jerry Seinfeld comes out and he says he wants to bring back dominant masculinity.
As a man, can I say that?
You sure you are? Are you?
I've always wanted to be.
I didn't ask your pronouns before we began.
I've always wanted to be a real man. I never made it. But I really thought when I was in that era, again, it was JFK, it was Muhammad Ali, it was Sean Connery, Howard Cosell. You can go all the way down there. That's a real man. I want to be like that someday. Well, no. I never really grew up. You don't want to as a comedian because it's a childish pursuit. But I miss a dominant masculinity. Yeah, I get the toxic thing. I get it. But still, I like a real man.
Jerry Seinfeld misses that old dominant masculinity. And this clip reminded me of one of the great moments from The Sopranos when Tony Soprano says the same thing.
Let me tell you something. Nowadays, everybody's got to go to shrinks and counselors and go on Sally Jesse Raphael and talk about their problems. Whatever happened to Gary Cooper? The strong, silent type. That was an American. He wasn't in touch with his feelings. He just did what he had to do. See, what they didn't know was once they got Gary Cooper in touch with his feelings, that they wouldn't be able to shut him up. And then it's dysfunction this, and dysfunction that, and dysfunction my...
Dysfunction this, dysfunction that. We're getting some really great vulgar Italian slang this week. We got the vaff, which I assume some of you, at least from the tri-state area, have heard before, kind of a naughty imperative in Italian-American slang, which comes from an Italian phrase. And then also from the Holy Father, you know. C'è già troppa. But the point that Tony Soprano and that Jerry Seinfeld and that the Holy Father have made they're all true. But Tony Soprano and Jerry Seinfeld are making the same point. We miss that. We miss a dominant masculinity, a good, healthy masculinity. We miss that. And it's not just me, and it's not just Seinfeld, and it's not just Tony Soprano. You miss it too. And it's not just conservatives, and it's not just moderates. Liberals miss. Everyone misses that. You remember that video of the girl who said she was a lesbian, but then she went out on one date with one finance bro who was wearing, a Patagonia fleece and bought her one drink, and all of a sudden she's gaga. She's ready to throw on a Donna Reed dress and start baking cookies. Everyone misses that. Why? What most people think is the reason that we miss that dominant masculinity is because weakness is dangerous, because weakness imperils us. It imperils our institutions, it imperils our families, it imperils our whole society. That is true in part. The other reason, though, that people miss that right now, why everyone misses that right now, is ironically because we like a little diversity. The libs say they love diversity. Obviously, they do not like very much diversity. They not only don't like diversity of opinion, they don't like diversity of behavior. They don't like, they like maybe diversity of skin color. Not even that, though, because they hate white people. They might like diversity of sex and gender, but not really, because they don't like normal guys. So they don't like that. But I do like diversity. I like variety. I think variety is the spice of life. And the reason that we need a little diversity and the reason that we need a little variety is because this is a fallen world and you're not all that. You don't have everything that you need for a totally flourishing life. This is in part a consequence of the fall of man and the fact that our nature is broken, and so we all have foibles and we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, some more than others. But this is also a fact of man's nature as a social animal. This is why even in the Garden of Eden, when God makes Adam gets a little lonely. And it's not right for Adam to be alone. And so God makes Eve, pulls Eve out of his rib. This is the Garden of Eden. Things are perfect there. And even in perfection, before the fall of Adam, man is still a social creature. Man still gets kind of lonely when he's alone. So we need a little diversity. We need a little complementarity. The liberal idea, classical, liberal, progressive liberal, all the liberalisms in between, is basically that we're all that. We're all that in a bag of potato chips. I don't need anybody else. I don't need anything. But we do, and we sense when we're missing something. Our culture right now is extraordinarily effeminate. The women are not feminine, and the men are extremely effeminate. That's the worst possible combination. And so we're longing for a Gary Cooper. This is why a politics that's got a little bit more machismo to it is attractive to a lot of people. And that's why the days of the nice sort of, quiet wallflower presidential nominee, they're kind of over, at least for the time being. And now we want a big, boisterous guy who's just going to tell you what it is. Gary Cooper doesn't go to shrinks. He doesn't talk about his feelings. You got to talk about this, sensitivity, that, sensitivity, this, sensitivity. Now, speaking of men in the old days, very old men, Joe Biden has just come out and reminded everyone of one of his favorite lies, which is that back in the 60s, Joe Biden, he was practically Martin Luther King.
Like I said, in 1969, I got involved deeply in the civil rights movement. Those of you who are Pennsylvanians know that Delaware used to be a slave state and a southern state, and its attitudes. I mean, for real. We have the 8th largest black population as a percent of population of any state in the nation. And one of the things that amazed me was how the community stepped up when you gave it a shot.
I remember back in the day when I was there writing the I Have a Dream speech for Martin Luther King. I remember how he turned to me, he said, "Joe, I might not live much longer, but you need to carry on the torch. You're the greatest civil rights leader in the whole world. And Corn Pop and I are very proud of you, Joe." That's basically what Joe is saying. It has as much truth value as the story that Joe is spinning, because this never happened. Joe was not involved in the civil rights movement, really in any way. You don't need to take my word for it. Even the liberal outlets have admitted this is totally made up. And yet he repeats it. He repeats it, and not only because he's senile, but he repeats it because Joe Biden is a cynic. He doesn't really care about the difference between truth and lies. And because of habituating himself to this cynicism for many decades, he no longer really can tell the difference between truth and falsehood. What's interesting here is not that he lied, which he's done many times, and he's been called out for it many times. He's going to keep doing it. What's interesting is why he lied. He lied because the civil rights movement in the modern imagination is the new founding of America. And the Civil Rights Act is the new Constitution for America. Christopher Caldwell at the Claremont Institute wrote an excellent book on this, Age of Entitlement, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Worth reading. That's what's interesting. We talk about how the liberals grab hold of history, rewrite history, transform history. This is a place where they've really done it very effectively. If you want to be elected, if you want to be, at least right now, 2024 in politics, you need to grab hold of the legacy of civil rights in the way that in earlier periods in American history, you would have to grab hold of the legacy of the American Revolution. In the way that perhaps in those earlier periods, you would grab hold of the legacy of the Mayflower, because those were considered to be the founding moments of America. That is not true in recent years. As American history has been revised and twisted, the true founding, the good founding of America, where we even skipped over Abraham Lincoln, the new founding of freedom. Forget about Lincoln. Lincoln's passé now too. The new founding is the 1960s, the civil rights movement. Washington is replaced by Martin Luther King. The Constitution is replaced by the Civil Rights Act. And so Joe Biden, for all of his cynicism and forgetfulness here, he's recognizing a real political fact in America, which is he's making himself another kind of founding father. He's probably old enough to have known Thomas Jefferson, but it's more politically potent today to pretend to have known Martin Luther King. Today is Theology Thursday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.